Welcome, I'm Julie Thompson, guest hosting This Week in Plymouth, with, of course, Plymouth Town Manager Derek Brindisi. Welcome, Derek.
Hi, Julie, how are you? Thanks for having me. It's been a few weeks since I've been here, so it's good to be back.
Like you said, lots of year-end things going on.
Yes, we've been extremely busy at Town Hall, a lot of things, closing up the books, trying to prepare for the next fiscal year, so very busy this time of year.
Okay, so a whole bunch of things we want to talk about. Can we just start with the transfer station?
Sure, so good question. Last night at the Select Board meeting, I had announced to the board that we're going to change not the hours of operation at our transfer station, but when we close the gate. So there's a gate when you access the transfer station. Normally it would close at 4 p.m. We're actually going to ratchet that down by 15 minutes and close the gate at 3:45. The reason we're doing that is because once we close the gate, then all of our residents that are inside the gate, they can finish their business. We can open the gate and let them out. So this way we don't have folks staying there, well into the 4:30 block.
So you can actually close at 4.
Exactly.
Everyone's gone at 4.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
And all the information that people need about paying, about getting permits, everything else is on your website.
Yeah, so again, new, enhanced, hopefully it's a little bit easier to use website. We want folks to be reminded that on June 30th, all of our transfer station permits expire. So folks can go online and they can apply for a new permit online. They can go in person, they go to the Treasurer Collector's office to apply for a permit, or you can just mail in a payment if you need to get a new transfer station permit.
Right, so at the end of next week, the permits are no good anymore.
June 30th.
Get a new one.
Yeah, next Friday, they're closing down.
Yeah, get a new one, folks. Okay, let's talk about town projects. And there's web pages on town's website about each of the projects. So let's talk about some of them.
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'd like to say about that is, again, with our new website, one thing that we hear over and over, especially from the Committee of Precinct Chairs, is, where do these projects stand? The legislative body, they vote all these articles, they appropriate millions of dollars every year, and everybody's interested in the status of these. So a new component to the website is like launching these like project updates. So the DPW and the Department of Environmental Affairs both have separate pages now where you can follow along on status updates on various roadway projects, water projects. Environmental Affairs has a lot of great projects around dam removal, beach nourishment programs. So those projects and the status are now going to be loaded on the website on a weekly basis.
Oh, that's great. Now, can we talk a little bit about the Water Street project? Where does it stand right now, and what are the plans going forward?
Right, so that's a good segue to just the project. So that's one thing. It's really we kind of beta tested how we would upload the project statuses because the sewer interceptor project on Water Street was really receiving a lot of attention because of everything that transpired back in March. So the current status on that project, which you can find on our website, as of last week, we've completed all of the new construction. So the extension of the sewer main right past Chilton Street. So that was completed last week. So now this week, they're removing all the sheathing on Water Street. So the folks that live in the areas, the folks that work in the area as far as the businesses, they're going to hear this week vibrations. Just by having to lift the sheathing out of the ground, there's going to be a lot of vibration that's going to take place. So there'll be a little bit of disturbance this week. We expect the sheathing to be removed by the end of this week. And then once that is complete, they're going to start to put the road back together. And so we would expect them to take 3 or 4 days to put the road back together. Now, we had originally had a goal of being completely done with this phase of the project by June 30th. We're on pace to do that. We made a commitment to the businesses by July 1st. Once the summer really starts to heat up and the 4th of July events start to take place, we'll be done with that project. And then we'll have to come back at a later date.
Now, when you say you're going to, the road's going to go back, is it going to be paved, or is there going to be temporary structures?
No, so they'll put the road back together. So the area that's been excavated right now, it's dirt.
Right.
So they'll just put like a patch of asphalt and cut that in. We've had some damage to the sidewalks, so we want to repair that. We don't want any trip hazards during the summer. So they'll put it back together. It won't be a final coat, but it'll be a top coat so that we can traverse it over the summertime.
And then you'll pick up again with this project, hopefully?
We're definitely we need
the
to complete
fall?
the project. So
Yeah.
this project by June 30th will be 50% complete. Now
Okay.
remember, the original goal was to be 100% complete by June 30th. And again, with the settlement that was caused in early March, we
Right.
weren't able to accomplish that goal. We have been listening very closely to the area businesses, and they have told us very loudly that certainly the summer months are off limits,
Yeah.
and we agreed to that.
Right.
But our shoulder season in Plymouth has really extended, well into October. Even like once you hit October, even you get into early November
Yeah.
with the Thanksgiving Day parade. So we're working with a contractor, and it's our goal to not restart the project until after the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Excellent.
It's our goal. So, but
Yep.
again, we have to work with the contractor. The contractor has an executed legal document with the town. So, this is going to be a compromise that we're going to have to negotiate in order to restart after Thanksgiving.
Right, because you have to finish the project.
Yeah, this we cannot return. This is a point of no return. We got to
Exactly.
finish the project, and I know it's created a lot of heartache, especially for the folks that live in that area and work in that area. But when it's all said and done, we're going to have been able to remove the sewer main from the harbor.
Right.
I mean, just think about the catastrophic event that could take place
Yeah.
if that sewer main had ever broken.
Right.
So we'll all look back on this in a couple of years and say that was, although grueling, it was worth
It was
the
necessary.
effort. It was
Yeah,
worth
had
the
to do
effort.
it. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about capital financing and long-term planning.
Sure. So this is a really important project, discussion, because it was just a few weeks ago, we had our town engineer and our DPW director come before the select board and talk about the road management program that we have here in town. And so there was an analysis done about 5 years ago and gave the town a road rating. And it's basically a compilation of all the goods and bad roads in town, and this is your road rating. And what we found about 5 years later, even with all the roadway investments, that we still have a long way to go. So, for example, part of the presentation is that we still have 58 miles of roadway that needs full depth reclamation.
Right.
And I believe they had said for like a mile of full depth reclamation is like $2 or $3 million. I forget the actual number. So, given the substantial investment in our roadways, coupled with another conversation that took place last week at COPC around continued investment into our public facilities, we have to start to come together as a community to decide where our priorities are going to be.
Right.
Part of the presentation that I participated in with the facilities component with COPC was, looking at our finances and looking at what revenues are available to fund both our pavement management program and our facilities management program. And what you find, and when you look deep in the numbers, is that we probably have about anywhere between $8 to $10 million every year to put towards that. This past year, we're going to put approximately $8 million in the roads alone.
Okay.
Because we know we need the investment. But over time, we can't continue to invest in roads at $8 million a year and invest in our facilities.
Right.
Because on top of that, I used as an example last week, what if the fire department needs a new ladder truck? New ladder truck's about $2 million alone just for one truck.
Right.
So the point of the story is that we have very limited resources, but a lot of needs.
Right.
And so we have to start to look at our finances and start to prioritize really where we're going to put our dollars and cents each and every year. So what we plan to do in early August, our finance director, Ms. Lynn Barrett, is putting together a financial analysis. We're going to have a workshop with the select board where we will present to the select board the town's projected revenues and expenses for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And so we hope what that does, it gives the select board and ultimately A&F and others who are other boards who are interested, it gives them a roadmap of what we can afford.
Right.
And so that's the goal, and that ultimately will lead into another goal-setting workshop at the end of August. So remember last year in August, we took the board through a goal-setting workshop and think we reported on the outcomes 10 months later. So we'll do that again this year. This will be our second year doing that. But what we wanted to do was really have the financial conversation first,
Right.
because that'll help inform the board's decision making as to like what can we realistically do given the town's finances.
Now, can I ask a question of roads versus buildings or infrastructure? So roads, we know that we live in New England, and no matter how well we redo a road or repave a road and go all the way down to do it all over again, 2 years later we could have frost. The length of time that road can stay in great condition is different than the length of time a building could
That's
stay
right.
in great condition, or a fire truck could stay in great
That's
condition.
right.
So how do you decide based given that intel also, because that's another factor that must come into play.
Well, I think part of the problem with roads, and it's not just Plymouth, so people always like to say, we should have invested more in Plymouth with our public facilities and our roads and this and that, but this happened everywhere in Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
Like every community I've worked in, there's always been a big conversation about roads, right?
Yeah.
So, and most roads last about 10 years, where like a facility, a building will last, 50 years.
Exactly.
It could even be longer than that. So the return on investment in a building is much
higher.
greater.
Yeah.
So usually we take out for a building like a 20-year mortgage. We'll call it a mortgage for
right,
folks at
right.
home, and have that paid off, and then get another 30 plus years as long as you have proper maintenance on it. But one thing that I really appreciate about our DPW that they're really starting to hone in on is what we need to do for preventive maintenance on our roads.
Right.
So there's new technology. There's like a rubber technology that they're putting down.
Just going to ask about that, yeah.
And so, it's sticky. So the first, couple of weeks, if dogs are walking out, we get complaints all the time because this tar is getting stuck to their paws. But by using that technology, it really extends the roads.
There you go.
Much further. And then there's other things you can do, like crack sealing. When you get those cracks in the roads and you don't fill those cracks, to your earlier point, the water gets inside the asphalt. It freezes over, it expands, and it cracks the road even further.
Yeah, and there you go.
It really deteriorates the road. So, they always say, what is it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Absolutely.
So the same is true for roads.
Yep.
If we can put more money into prevention and repair those full depth roads down the road, eventually I do believe we'll catch up to it. But again, Plymouth is so complicated because we have 104 square miles. We have the fourth largest road network in all of Massachusetts, the fourth largest, and we're supposed to be a town. So we have
We are a town.
we have a lot of needs, and it's a balancing act.
Right. That was a good explanation, though. So let's talk about like Allerton Street Park, Stevens Field, dog parks.
Yeah. So I'm
That's
happy you
all good
brought this
stuff.
up. Yeah. No, it's great stuff because I would say that Plymouth has had a rich history in securing open space.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We love our outdoor space. We love our trails. We love our ponds, and at least in the last 6-7 years, you see like there's kind of been a groundswell of investing in our parks and our playgrounds even more than ever before. Nelson Park was just renovated 4 or 5 years ago now, probably a little bit longer. But just this past year, you can see, I hope the community sees that there's been even a greater investment in our parks and playgrounds. So, the big one everybody always talks about is Stevens Field. It's like a $4.5 million investment into a complete 100% renovation. And that project is going out to bid just next week, actually, is going out to bid. We hope to break ground at Stevens Field probably towards the latter part of the summer. And so that'll take at least, a year, a little more than probably a year and a half for completion. But again, a substantial investment using CPC dollars. But some of the other things that's not getting as much fanfare that folks need to be aware of is that the Allerton Street Playground, for example, we talked in the past on this show about some of our parks and playgrounds being taken over by dog owners, and they become these de facto dog parks. And what happens when they become de facto dog parks? Families and children aren't enjoying them anymore, right? Because it's really difficult for dogs and children to coexist in the same space. So what we did, well, I can't say we, but the select board approved last December was to appropriate $400,000 from ARPA funds to take back the Allerton Street playground. So it's completely finished.
Yeah.
It looks amazing. So those folks who haven't had the opportunity to go up to Allerton Street and take your children, you have to go up there. I've driven past there a few times already, and every time I've driven past there, there's got to be at least a dozen kids.
Yeah.
And there was a play area at the old Allerton Street Park.
Yep.
Every time I went over there was never one child.
Yeah.
And I went there a number of times because of all the dog complaints I'd get. Now when I drive by there, you got parents sitting on the lawn watching their kids play.
Yeah. It's great.
It's really amazing to see the transformation of that park. And then because Allerton Street is now family oriented, where it should have been to begin with, Selectman Harry Helm has convened a dog park committee, recognizing that we have lots of dog lovers in this community.
A lot of canines.
And they need space too,
Yeah.
right? So he came before the select board a couple of weeks back and presented their final recommendation to the select board as far as the dog park. They're looking at 2 locations here in town. They're looking at a location in the Cedarville area, and they're looking at a location over at Folgers Field.
Perfect.
And the reason why they chose those, and I love the explanation that Selectman Helm provided, was that because there's also another dog park right on the Kingston line. So residents in Plymouth could go to the Kingston line dog park, could go to the Folgers Field, which is in the center of town, and then could go in the southern part of town down at Cedarville. So the board has appropriated approximately $500,000 to make those 2 dog parks happen here in town. So again,
and that's ARPA funds too.
Using all ARPA funds. The point of it all is that we are really trying to be intentional on investing in our parks and our playgrounds, and not just for humans but for dogs as well. So I really appreciate that because I came from a community where there was no investment in parks and playgrounds, and now because of the last 10 years of what the city of Worcester done, it's become a model for parks and playgrounds in Massachusetts. So you can see the transformation of a community by investing in parks and playgrounds, and I hope our residents feel the same way about what we've been able to accomplish in the last few years here in Plymouth.
There's a lot, What about beach policies and guidelines? That's
so I guess this is kind of the dark side of our recreation space.
Not dark, but just different.
Well, so we have phenomenal natural resources in town. Again, and I never appreciated that from where I'm coming from. And I come here and I look at these like ponds where you can look down into the water and see the bottom, like crystal clear ponds. And the frustrating thing is the Community Preservation Committee, boards and committees have done so much over the last 2 decades to provide access to these areas that there's a small faction of the folks out there that don't appreciate it as much. And so oftentimes we're sending our DPW staff to clean up trash. At Whitehorse Beach last week, we had invested $100,000 last year in a portable trailer. So the people that go to Whitehorse Beach have not a porta potty, but a comfortable place for a restroom. Someone ripped off the door. So the point is, like, we really want folks to, like, one, appreciate our natural resources, appreciate what your tax dollars are doing for you, and respect the property because we want to use this for future generations. And so it's definitely disheartening to see the vandalism with graffiti and the destruction that again, a very probably less than 1% of the population has participated in, but it's hurting us as a community as a whole because we have to fix it, and it's costing our residents more money to do this. So that's my PSA on
cut it out.
Like, enjoy our parks and playgrounds. Don't destroy them.
Convention center possibilities.
Yes. So see Plymouth and the Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Foundation came together with some funding at the state level to do a study about a future potential convention center here in town. And so that study has been complete. Right now, See Plymouth is hosting a number of public forums where they're announcing the recommendations that came out of the study, and they're looking for feedback. So the next one is going to be on June 28th at the Great Hall in Town Hall.
Right.
And so there's going to be 3 different sessions on that day. The first one begins at 9:30. So for folks that are interested in learning more about the convention center ideas, then I would say certainly go there, because those public forums are really important, because that's going to help take us to the next step as far as a convention center being a possibility here in town. I think one thing they're looking to do is understand where folks want to see a convention
Sure.
center. Do we want a convention center downtown? Do we want a convention center, off of Route 3, or do we want a convention center, say, down on by the beach, by Long Beach? So that'll be very important to help us continue the conversation
Right.
about a future
To take it to the
convention
next
center.
step.
That's right.
Okay. The 4th of July parade, obviously, is going to be a big event. Always draws awful lot of people here at Plymouth.
Yeah, so the 4th of July, last year was my first time to really participate in the 4th of July parade. And honestly, I only remembered the Thanksgiving Day parade when I was here as the assistant town manager. And I was amazed with the 4th of July parade. It's a huge parade. They do an amazing job. Matt Tavares and his team on the 4th of July committee were in last night, and it's for the folks who haven't gone to the parade, you have to go to the parade. In fact, I'm bringing my grandkids down just because all the fire trucks that they have in it. So that'll be obviously on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
I want to say it steps off about 9 a.m. I believe it steps off.
I think it is. Yep.
It'll head down Court Street and then make its way down to Main Street like it has in years past. It'll loop around Water Street and end right around the Coles Hill, which is usually a viewing stand for folks. So, but that's just, I guess, event number
1.
Actually, it's 2, because number 1 is the road race. So
that's right.
Right, the road race begins early in the morning. At 7:30, that begins. So that'll really kick off the festivities. So I know a number of folks continue to sign up for that. That's another great aspect of our 4th of July. But then the last piece is our free concert that's put on by the Plymouth Philharmonic. So.
And
Kim
you participated in that last
I did
year.
last year.
Yeah.
I
you did a reading, and Marianne Leone is doing it this year.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good for her.
Yeah.
I appreciate everything she's doing.
Yeah.
That's when I had asked to do that last year by Kim, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. It sounds good when they ask the question, and then you have to rehearse and stuff. So, but they, again, a free concert, amazing job. From beginning to end, I think Plymouth is really the place to be for 4th of July.
Absolutely. And to be a little self-promotion here, PACTV will be covering the parade, and then at night we will also be covering the concert on our channels and on our live stream.
And then we end it off with the fireworks.
With fireworks at the end. Yeah.
Fireworks over the harbor.
Yeah. So if you can't make it down, and we really suggest you do make it down if you can always watch it on PACTV.
Perfect.
Let's talk a little bit about, in our final few moments, your CClickFix initiative that you have on your website now, where people can report problems. It's almost too successful. I hear.
Yeah. So this was a big goal of the select board last year. So they use the term, we need a 311 system.
Yeah.
And the whole point is because we need a better way for our residents to communicate problems and concerns that they have. And so that was a goal last summer. We were able to get an appropriation from town meeting in October. And then a lot of hard work by Anthony Sinesi, Joe Young, our IT director, were able to put this CClickFix, which is another term of 311, together. And we launched, I want to say we launched it in early April.
Yeah.
And it's almost too successful.
Yeah.
And so the great thing is that it sets expectations for our residents. So in the old days, you'd call, you'd file a complaint or a concern, and then hopefully you'll see
somebody.
Right, you'll see. Yeah, exactly. But now the way it is, say you had a pothole, you can take a picture of the pothole and the address, and then we have somebody on our end, on the DPW side, that says, okay, we acknowledge that. We will send somebody out there to fill that pothole in 3 days.
So you can actually track it.
Yeah, right.
Which is great. That's what people really want. They want to just know that somebody heard me, and it has been recorded, and someone will work on it at some point.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's interactive, and again, it sets expectations, so folks don't have to ever wonder like what's going on with that. But again, because of it, it's really put a demand on our DPW. So we're
Yeah.
going to have to balance that as well.
Sure, absolutely. But I think, to your point, it's people have a really great, legitimate place to go where everything can be. There's so many things you can choose from. From a dog or a animal, a loose animal, or
Yep.
there's all kinds of things that you can actually report. Obviously, you should report things that really need to be reported.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And the
Just
other thing,
for the
too,
heck
at
of
the
it.
end of the year, we can run a report and we can say, these were all the calls for service that
Right.
we filled.
Right.
And hopefully demonstrate the
And
the
what were
need
what
for
were the
additional
common
resources.
ones? What were the ones that came up the most? And then
Right.
maybe more.
Is it a road issue?
Exactly. Right. Is it a road issue? Is it a building issue? What about the charter committee now? There's going to be a new charter committee. You want to talk about that?
Sure. So our moderator, Steve Trifoletti, he had made an announcement actually at the PACTV forum when we did the charter review that early March. He had made a comment at that meeting saying, listen, if this charter doesn't pass the ballot, I will appoint a charter review committee as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he's delivered on that promise.
Yeah.
He's already formulated a selection committee, which is made up of himself, Pompey Delafield from
Yep.
COPC, and then Selectman Harry Helm. So
Yep.
those three individuals are actually meeting this coming Monday for their first meeting, and I think at that time they'll formulate kind of a way forward as far as how they're going to accept applications, how they're going to review applications, and then ultimately how they're going to make the appointments for the Charter Review Committee.
Right. So we've gone from a commission that did not pass right into a new committee. And a lot of the things that were brought up in the commission's report will be addressed by this committee.
That's right.
Because there were a lot of things that were very, very positive. A lot of people felt there was some things that we could move forward with for the town. Okay, so in our last minute and 7 seconds, what message do you want to give people for the upcoming summer?
Well, I would say to folks, just first of all, be safe.
Yeah.
That's most important. A lot of injuries that happen during the course of the year happen during the summer months, and unfortunately, it's just folks kind of being, enjoying being outside, and just injuries take place. So, be safe in everything that you do. We're all looking forward to a really great summer. Hopefully, the weather holds up, and we have a nice warm summer like we did last year. But there's more to come. We have a lot of work ahead of us in the future. We have a lot of announcements that we're going to be making this coming fiscal years, and so some
Stay
of them
tuned.
some of them will take place right here. So
Okay.
we're excited. We have a lot of positive momentum, and we think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, go Plymouth.
That's right.
Okay. So this has been another This Week in Plymouth with Town Manager Derek Brindisi. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Have a
Thanks.
great 4th of July.
Yeah. Thank you. You too.